and welcome to SF Live. I'm your host, Christina Marie Flores.
And I'm Sha'Nice Patterson.
Today, Sha'Nice and I are going to be interviewing the supervisor for District 10,
Sophie Maxwell.
Welcome, Supervisor Sophie Maxwell. How are
Thank you very much. Fine.
Very good. As you may know, Sophie is a born and raised San Franciscan. Now, what point of your life did you actually move to the area that you represent now?
Well, my mother ran for the first district elections.
Oh, really?
Very beginning, and so she was always known very much so in Potrero Hill, and we moved to Bayview because at that time that was part of the district that she was running in. So that was my first really beginning knowing what politics was all about, and certainly Bayview, my first introduction.
So your mom was very involved in the political scene, and that's how you grew up with that?
Yes, she ran for school board and she ran for the Board of Supervisors, and she was very well known in Potrero Hill, and she also attended the March in Washington. So we have been involved politically and civically for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
What led you to become district supervisor?
Well, I'd started working in my district, my community. We were talking about having a redevelopment area, and so I wanted to be a part of that. And also, I started working and being involved more in, I guess we were thinking about there was possibly going to be a new power plant in my district. And so I started working on not having that new power plant in my district, and also working on revitalizing the community, and that's kind of where I got started.
I have a follow-up question for that. Now, for the viewers that may not know what District 10 encompasses, what neighborhoods are included in District 10?
Well, I always say it's from ballpark to ballpark. So
okay.
Candlestick Park to football park to the new baseball stadium, and also to Potrero Avenue. And then it also encompasses the McLaren Park in the Viz Valley Portola part of the city.
Okay, great.
From living in the Bayview for more than 2 decades, what changes have you seen in the Bayview?
Well, certainly the 3rd Street Light Rail, the development of the shipyard, the lack of jobs. You know, I mean, at one point, this area was one of the economic engines from San Francisco, for San Francisco, and so that's kind of diminished somewhat. But what's happening is kind of a new growth and new jobs and new direction for Bayview Hunters Point.
Okay.
A lot of housing going on 3rd Street.
What changes are you most happy with, and what changes do you think that the Bayview should improve on?
Well, I think the fact that people are more aware of the area than ever before, and people are thinking about it, trying to consider it in plans, which I don't think we ever have been considered before, and that's a very positive thing. I think the growth of the shipyard, you know, the vote that was taken, we had the last election, there was a vote taken on the shipyard, and it was passed overwhelmingly. And for the first time, I think, people start thinking about Bayview Hunters Point in a very positive manner. There was a lot of money spent on that campaign, but I think it was worth every bit of it, because for the first time, people were thinking, oh, I could live over there. And what are they doing? And people voted overwhelmingly to see a change and to support the people who live there. So that's what I see, that people are looking at this district hopefully.
Now, I have a question, because it was very interesting for me to learn that Bayview Hunters Point is actually one of the largest communities of people that are actually owning their own property and living there in San Francisco. That they actually live and own and have generations of families that have lived there. This area now connected with the 3rd Street Rail, now that it is more accessible. Can you take us through a little walk of what it used to be like in that area? It was a thriving place where there were businesses and people that worked in the shipyards and people that were a blue-collar community in that area.
Yes, the Bayview, it was very close to the shipyard, and that's where a lot of people worked. But redevelopment came in, and they were redeveloping the housing projects on the hill. And so people said, well, wait a minute, we don't want it to be like the Fillmore. And so they demanded that the people who lived in the housing projects had an opportunity to buy homes. And they were given, the adults in the family were given a certain amount of money, and they were able to put that toward a down payment. That's why it became one of the largest homeowner districts in the city, and African American homeowner districts in the city. And so it was a thriving place. 3rd Street was bustling. But then after, in the 60s, when there was the riots that went throughout, Bayview Hunters Point never recovered from that. Like a lot of other African American districts throughout the country, it never really happened. And so I think for a long time, San Francisco had this place that nobody ever talked about.
Right, exactly.
You know, and from Nob Hill to Bayview Hills, very, very different. Well, we're trying to change that now. We're trying to change that. And I think that's where we are. And that's why it's so hopeful. And it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful part of the city that so many
We have
people
the best
don't
weather.
know. The best weather, very good. I'm close to that on the Mission, so I have the little warm belt too. But now the 3rd rail goes right there, and it's wonderful to be able to explore that area. So many San Franciscans don't know.
But I think
areas.
more and more of them are reaching out, and that's why I think the whole election did a lot, because people wanted to see what they were voting for. And so now with, I think, especially when we're having the Saturdays and Sundays that are no traffic, you know, and especially down 3rd Street, people are riding their bikes and they're coming over and they're looking at this place and they're thinking about the shipyard and they're seeing these magnificent views and this wonderful weather, and they're saying, well, I want to be a part of that. You know?
Very nice. And please, if you haven't checked out that area, it's now time to go and go see what you're missing. I have a question for you. What, changing the pace a little bit, what are the biggest challenges that our city faces today, in your opinion?
Well, certainly one is our budget. But I think it's an opportunity. And so I think it's an opportunity to look at the way we give our services. I mean, we have so many services, but you know, how do we really accomplish that? And so we have to go back and look, and it's an opportunity for us to look at the things that we do well, things that we could do better. Again, to talk about what our priorities are. And I think San Franciscans have very much said we want people to be able to have good health.
Yes.
You know, with San Francisco General Hospital, people voted for the rebuild of that overwhelmingly. And so we have to look at then how we give our services out. And that's a huge challenge. Certainly transportation, all the things that we hold dear are big challenges, because we get a lot of money from the state. Well, the state's cut back on transportation dollars, so we have to make up for that. The state has cut back on hospital medical dollars. We have to make up for that. So all the things that we hold dear, we're going to have to relook and rethink. But I think it's also an opportunity, but we're going to have to make some serious considerations on what
So
we do.
we can redistribute a little bit
Yes.
of what we have, and then, yeah, that seems to be one of the biggest problems that we have right now.
Yes.
Did you have another question?
It's how we deliver the services, and we have to look at that. Because I think all of us agree that the services are important.
Very much so.
So how do we deliver those services in a more economic way, and also to keep things in place so that when they change, we'll have a structure and we don't just dismantle our structure completely, and to get ourselves prepared for the infrastructure dollars that will come down the pike. How will we prepare ourselves for that?
Excellent.
Okay. Who do you look up to and why?
Well, you know, my mother, Enola D. Maxwell, and there's a school named after her. My mother comes to me all the time. I mean, there's so many things that she said to me that were so true, you know, about anger. And she said, Sophie, do not allow people to make you angry, because they can control you. And to think things through to their most logical conclusion. And so my mother is one that comes to me so often, and so I still look up to her. But there are people in my everyday life that I look up to, and I don't always know their names, but I see how they act, and they're role models for me. I see the way they go through their lives, and so they're kind of the people that I see all the time. There's young people that I look up to that continue fighting, and they're creative, and they pick up a camera and they make films right here in Bayview Hunters Point, you know, and they come up with programs, and they're about children and about families. So there are a lot of unsung heroes that I look up to.
How about giving a little mention to the film? Are you talking about the one where they use a camera as a weapon? It was talking. There's a film maker from the Bayview Hunters Point
Yes.
that I got to see at the Roxy.
Yes.
Amazing movie, telling your story about the struggle with
Yes.
a camera rather than a weapon.
Yes.
And it was an amazing concept, and it was a very brilliant movie.